Hey, this is Todd, the Cybertruck truck guy, and today I want to tell you why I think the Cybertruck is the most important vehicle to come across our time since the Model T. So let's start with a little bit of history about the Model T. So most of us know that in 1908, Ford Motor Company introduced the Model T. It became almost an overnight sensation that would ultimately transform the automobile world from a rich man's toy to kind of something for the everyman, and it ushered in the automobile age, right? So most of us know that much, but I kind of wanted to look at it and just retell some of the points you might not know. So Ford built his first automobile back in 1896, and then he tried a couple of times to start an automobile company, and finally in 1903 he created the company that would ultimately become the Ford Motor Company. So from 1903 to 1908, Ford produced multiple models, and most of them were sort of custom vehicles, limited runs. They had models running A, B, C, not the popular A that came later, but all the way. So they had a bunch of different models all the way through until the Model S. Now, all those other models, they were expensive. They had names like the Silent Cyclone, and they sold for upwards of $3,000, a lot of money. So they were all low volume vehicles built for the wealthy. But Ford's business was very profitable, making $300,000 in their first year. But he really wanted something more. He really wanted a vehicle for the masses. He wanted something that could be used out on the farm as a tool, not as a toy. You got to remember, most roads were unpaved. Most people lived on farms. Any vehicle that was going to be for the masses was going to have to be able to stand up to a lot of abuse, driving in the backcountry and being used kind of as the original work vehicle. Repairs had to be able to be made in the remote, and they needed to be made with simple tools. And the vehicle could not sell for $2,000 or $3,000 plus that they were charging for other vehicles. So Ford invented the Model T. It was a high clearance, simple, but very ruggedly built machine. In order to make the manufacturing and repairs easy, they started using mass-produced interchangeable parts. And to get rid of the battery, he used remember that crank engine? To make it cheaply, one of the things he did was offer it only in one color, black. Now, a lot of us have heard the quote of Ford when he was asked about, can people get it in another color? And he said, any customer can have a car painted any color that they want as long as it's black. All right, so popular quote. Now, many people assume that he did this because he wanted to avoid, the complications of painting multiple different colors. And though there's probably some truth to that, the real reason that the paint was black was that there was a new technology available that was dry a lot faster, but the only problem was you could only get it in black. That's why they were black. So every engineering and design and production decision they made was made to either lower the cost or increase utility. So when it was launched in 1908 for $950, that was amazing. But a few years later, it was selling for $350. It was so simple they could keep lowering the cost. It eventually had a 40% market share of all the cars sold by 1925. So when I look at the engineering and design decisions that drove the Cybertruck, I see a lot of the same philosophical influences that drove Ford and the Model T design. Tesla did not design a truck. They engineered it. And then once it was engineered, they put some design elements in it where it was practical. So I've got 9 reasons why I think the Cybertruck is the most important vehicle since the Model T. Number 1, it's the first mass market vehicle to do a frame-up redesign of the entire vehicle, specifically leveraging an electronic chassis. Every other electric vehicle so far has looked more or less normal. Not the Cybertruck. Tesla broke the mold. By doing this, they gave everyone the excuse to throw out the old and start trying a bunch of new things. Number 2, it's the first mass market vehicle since the Beetle or the Jeep to really go, we're not going to focus on aesthetics. We're going to focus on utility, durability, and production cost. And whether you like the way it looks or not, that's your problem. See, the thing is, when you embrace a kind of form follows function idea, you end up designing something that sort of has a beautiful kind of ugly. It mocks the adequate, invisible, boring design of every other vehicle. Number 3, it was engineered to be cheap and simple to produce in both large and small quantities. That means it can be assembled almost anywhere with almost any volume. No big stamping plant, no fancy paint lines. Bend it, weld it, go. Next. 4, its cheap and utilitarian body has allowed Tesla to spend money in other places that allow it to be cheap but have premium features, like the adaptive air, 500-mile range, and the 0 to 60 speed. 5, it's the first mass-market vehicle to use an exoskeletal design. This means it can weigh less, be safer, be stronger, and be cheaper than everything else out there. That's a game changer. 6, it's the first mass-market vehicle that has the pricing and utility to be viable for both developed and underdeveloped countries. Remember that more than 90% of the world's roads are unpaved. Now there's a vehicle that can go anywhere. 7, it's the easiest vehicle to mimic the design. You can upsize it or downsize it. You could make a Cybercross, a crossover, or a cyber van. These would all be very easy to achieve because there's limited choices, only so many ways to bend it. So it makes the simplicity its beauty. You know how the first truck was made? They took a Model T, they cut the cab in half, they put a flat board or piece of metal on the back part, and voila, it's a truck. Simplicity breeds customization. 8, it's a design that resists the need for constant model refresh cycles. It mimics the timeless utilitarianism of the Jeep and the Beetle. The reason those vehicles don't change is because they work. They were designed to do a thing, and they work. That utilitarian kind of design doesn't change, keeps the cost low. 9, it's going to be the most distinctive and recognizable vehicle ever. It looks like nothing else. It's a sculpture that will silently scream everywhere it goes. People are going to gawk. Kids are going to beg for rides. Teenagers are going to pull up and gun their engines at the stoplight hoping for an impromptu drag race. It's going to take us places no respectable vehicle is going to go. It's going to become a character in our games and in our films. You know, Cybertrucks are in a parking lot. They're going to become an impromptu gathering place for the curious or the envious or the horrified. People are going to remember the first time they saw one in real life. It's going to be loved. It's going to be hated. It will definitely not be ignored. Cybertruck is going to be the most recognizable vehicle in the world. It's going to operate in all parts of the world, fulfilling the broadest sets of needs in the world for one of the best prices in the world. It'll be all those things for a very long time. The Model T has been reincarnated, and I say, welcome back. So we know it wasn't the first car, but it was the first car to carry this always takes longer. Okay, thanks for watching. When you like and subscribe and comment, it makes me feel a little less weird about projecting my questionable opinions out into the void. So your support and feedback means a lot. Thanks.